Fallout 4 is an open-world, post-apocalyptic, action role-playing adventure game released in 2015 by Bethesda Softworks on the PS4, Xbox One and PC. Besides its genre being a mouthful to pronounce, it's a game that has had mixed reviews since its initial launch, yet it recently peaked the Steam charts again in 2024 as of the release of the Fallout TV show. My name is Chev, and in this video I will tell you if you should refund Fallout 4 within 2 hours of in-game playtime, probably better known as the Steam refund time. A game should be good straight away, not 10 hours in. So let's see what this $20 game is all about. Before we get into the summary of my playtime, some background is needed. I have never properly played another Bethesda game besides Skyrim. Like most people who played The Elder Scrolls V, I have hundreds and hundreds of hours into that game and consider it to be one of the best ever to be made. I also played a little bit of Starfield for another one of these videos, but that's about the extent of my Bethesda experience. So my knowledge of the Fallout games really comes down to knowing that they are the post-apocalyptic shooter variant of Skyrim. This obviously is slightly disrespectful to the series as a whole, as Fallout New Vegas, for example, is considered to be one of the best games of its generation and widely adored by its players. However, whilst doing research online, I came across a lot of people saying that Fallout 4 wasn't up to the standards of older Fallout games. Now, in most cases, this could just be nostalgia speaking, but Bethesda isn't particularly known for revolutionizing their titles, and in contrary, they are known for releasing glitchy, clunky and graphically underwhelming video games that get fixed by its community in the form of various mods. On the topic of these mods, I'll be playing the game in its vanilla state, as this is the way the average player will consume the game. I'm sure any aspect I like or dislike can be enhanced or fixed with certain types of mods, but I want to experience the game as Bethesda intended it. I'll also be playing the game with a controller, as this is my preferred way of playing video games. I usually don't bring that up, but in the case of this game, it's actually a relevant aspect. Now, enough rambling, let's get into my experience playing Fallout 4 for the very first time. Straight away, I was hit with lore galore in two different opening cutscenes. One I'm assuming that will change every time you boot up the game, and another that will only be there when you start it up for the first time. The first one explained one of the 7 aspects of the skill tree in a funny cartoon-styled way, where it showed up what upgrading that skill could give you if you invested your skill points into it. I'm assuming this will change every time you boot up the game, and once you've seen them all, you probably skip them or maybe not get them at all again, but I do think it's a great way to show off an important aspect of the game in a light-hearted way, yet also teaching the players a little bit about its mechanics without even having played the game. The art style is really cool too, reminiscent of old black and white cartoons with relevant music to accompany it, a style of music that we will hear more about during our playtime. Now the second cutscene was a bit more serious and more relevant to the game's overall lore. It spoke about how war never changes, referencing World War II as the great-grandfather of the main character fought for our freedom in Europe. Yet something different happened in the world of Fallout, as after the detonation of the nuke in Hiroshima, we used our knowledge of nuclear bombs to create sustainable and hyper-efficient nuclear fusion energy, skyrocketing our society into the future and creating a sort of utopia. But just like real life, all good things come to an end, and as soon as we depleted all resources, people got angry and a new war unfortunately started. And this is around the time we find our main character, in the year 2077, a soldier, just like his great-grandfather, living in a quiet town with his wife and his son. Straight away, we got thrown into character customization, an aspect I usually spend quite a lot of time in, but this time I didn't. Was it to play as much of the game as possible in the 2-hour window? No. To be honest, it was mainly because the menu felt quite clunky and I couldn't be asked to navigate it, so I decided to go with the basic character preset. Now don't get me wrong, the features that are there are quite extensive, but the menus were just too awkward to navigate that I decided not to use any of the features at all. Once I created my NPC looking guy, I went on to explore the house and straight away fell in love with the aesthetics of the game. Well, mainly the setting, as the graphics themselves weren't anything special. Definitely not terrible by any means, but for sure not up there with some games released around the same time, like Assassin's Creed Unity. However, the futuristic look, mixed with the 60s/70s aesthetics, with all the furniture and music, really gave it a unique feel and atmosphere. Exploring is a huge part of Bethesda games and the reason why I fell in love with Skyrim. The great thing is that this game actually encourages you to do so straight away. as you have to explore the house to trigger the first story event, requiring you to meet your personal robot Codsworth, hang out with your son, and look around the house. This not only encourages you to explore certain areas in a natural manner, but it also builds up the backstory of our main character. Once you've looked around the house a bit, a salesman rings the doorbell. He is there to gather your information for your spot in the local vault in case of a nuclear bomb being detonated. This first encounter is also our introduction to the role-playing element of the game, as you get given 4 different response choices: friendly, mean, sarcastic, and questioning. As a sarcastic person myself, I'm glad there are options for it. However, throughout my journey, they didn't feel too impactful. Maybe this will change in the long term, but in the short term, they didn't really make a difference. The salesman didn't just function as an introduction to the game's RPG element, but also to its skill point system. This isn't the fully fledged skill tree yet, but your starting spread of skill points, giving you the ability to build your character to your liking before starting the game. Even though the game does a great job at explaining what each skill does, I always hate it when you need to make these decisions before you even played the game at all. How am I supposed to know if I prefer heavy or light weapons, or if I need to be more sneaky or more tanky? This isn't just a problem with Fallout or Skyrim, but in most games that have skill trees. Yet it's something that I always will be bringing up, as it just simply annoys me. Anyway, I picked my skills to the best of my abilities, went back inside, stopped my kid from crying, and then got warned by Codsworth to check out what was going on the television. America was being attacked and a nuclear bomb was being dropped. Seeing this on the TV, standing in the living room with your wife, really gives you a sense of, damn, it's really happening. We are screwed. What are we supposed to do? Panic mode. The game then prompted me to run outside and make my way to the vault. On your way there, you run past various other families, some being stopped at the gates to the vault, which is pretty messed up if you think about it, because they didn't have to write paperwork. Eventually, you make your way to the platform that is supposedly taking you down to the vault, but just before the elevator starts working, you see a nuclear bomb being detonated and a shockwave coming your way. This is a very powerful scene, as it gives you a proper realization of what just happened. You don't just hear about it, you actually physically see it, and you truly understand that the Earth is doomed. Once safely in the vault, you get told to put a uniform on, before being prompted to follow this doctor, who will show you to the, quote, decontamination pod, which is nothing more than a cryopod that will freeze you until they decide to unfreeze you. Something that apparently no one who signed up knew about. Well, at first sight, it might actually not be the worst thing. They freeze you till the world is fixed again, and they then unfreeze you. Fair enough. But whilst being frozen, there is a moment where you get unfrozen for a bit, and saw the vault people take your son from your wife's arms after she refused to give him, and them shooting her. Yeah, this sets up the main story, as you want to retrieve your son and avenge your wife. Even though it might be a bit of a basic storyline, it does do the trick. Especially as they set up your relationship with them during the early stages of the game, which added a bit more of an emotional attachment to them and jeopardy to you losing them. You get frozen again and then eventually unfrozen again and wake up sometime later, not knowing how long it has been. The game truly starts here as you set out on your mission to avenge your wife and find your son. You go through the vault exploring what happened, which must be something truly awful as everyone seems to have died and have died a long time ago. This is also where your first combat encounter is, as you come across some truly disgusting giant cockroaches that live in the vault. During combat, I noticed the simplicity of the heads up display, or HUD, something I can truly appreciate. Bottom left was your health, bottom right was your stamina, and above that was your ammo count. And any tips regarding the game popped up in the top right. Simple, but very effective. After beating some more roaches, finding a gun, all that was left now is to escape this hellhole and go back to the outside world, which by the way, how does my character even know it's safe out there? I never got told anything about radiation or dangers outside, so how do I know? Anyway, I found the entrance and the platform that would lead me out to the world again, but the platform didn't respond to me pressing the button, as I needed something called a Pip-Boy, an item that conveniently was placed right below my feet. Nice. I put the device on and was introduced to the game's menu interface, and oh boy, Navigating this interface might be up there with one of the worst interface experiences I have ever had within gaming, as it felt really clunky and unintuitive, using L2 and R2 to change inventory categories, like quest items etc, and left and right arrow to navigate within the category. I thought Skyrim's interfaces felt clunky on controller, but this one for sure tops it. However, it is something you can get used to after playing for a while, so it isn't the worst thing in the world. What is though, is that this interface also has your map in it, making it hard for me to distinguish where the hell I am, as I find it hard to read. Now, I do have poor eyesight, but I have never struggled as much to read a map in a game as I did here. After this interesting experience, I made my way out of the vault. The idiot that I am, I fell off the platform and nearly missed the glorious moment of the vault opening. Yeah, I'm a bit of an idiot. Anyway, I got to the elevator and made my way up into the world, or well, what was left of it, as it was a barren wasteland with rusted cars, broken buildings, and no greenery to be seen anywhere. A truly dystopian vibe, accompanied by some extremely fitting ambient music, something Skyrim does a great job with, but Fallout 4 isn't far behind it from what I've heard. My first thought was to explore the initial area a bit before going back to my house to see what is left here. I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually supposed to do that as I didn't pay attention to my mission marker. When I got to the ruins of my old home, I came across a familiar face, Cotsworth. He somehow survived the detonation and was still alive. I didn't know it till I spoke to him, but it had been nearly 200 years since we went into the vault. During this conversation, I was also introduced to the persuade mechanic by offering me a yellow option during my chat with Cotsworth, a color that indicated the persuasion skill, a nice neat introduction to it, and something that I can really appreciate it as it felt very natural. With Cotsworth at my side, we explored the area for some things, picked up a few bits and bobs here and there. Well, everything, as with these types of games, you never know what you might need or not need. One of the main reasons I always install infinite inventory slot mods, as I'm way too paranoid to miss out on important items. During my scavenging, I came across a gunsmith bench, where you could upgrade your weapons, offering you a buttload of modifiers to each weapons, adding a lot of depth to this mechanic, and something I can truly appreciate. Most games usually only allow you to add a bigger magazine or a longer barrel to your weapon, but Fallout allows you to change pretty much everything about it, and I think that is pretty cool, adding more depth to its mechanics. After exploring with Cotsworth, he told me to go to a nearby town called Concord, as there were people who supposedly lived there, people who might have information on the whereabouts of my son. So I set out and tracked down Concord, following Cotsworth directions, crossing the nearby bridge and going straight towards my mission marker. This is where I found a body that gave me a nice little armor upgrade. It's eat or be eaten, boys. Don't blame me. Once I got close to the town, I heard gunshots and decided to sneak my way around till I had no choice to encounter the enemies. At first I thought these were the people who had the information for me, but I quickly learned they were raiders trying to raid the people who set up camp there. So I took them out and got invited into the museum, where the supposed friendlies were also being attacked from the inside. After clearing them out as well, navigating through the museum and picking them off one by one, I was introduced to Preston Garvey, the leader of the friendly group, who thanked me for my help and offered his help in return if I could take out some more raiders with the mech suit that was upstairs. The issue was, I needed some nuclear core to power it, which I just so happened to come across whilst exploring the building and taking out the enemies. Now, before I tell you about my awesome mech suit experience, we have to talk about the gunplay, because honestly, it feels terrible. Now, Skyrim's gameplay isn't the most smooth either, but the clunkiness is less noticeable when you hack and slash enemies, as that is a clunky action to begin with. Don't get me wrong, many games do it way better than Skyrim, but having this same clunkiness in a shooter game just feels awful. Enough complaining, I went to the roof, got into the mech suit, got the minigun out of the chopper and started mowing down some raiders, feeling all powerful, and this was truly an awesome experience as you felt invulnerable whilst taking out bad guys. This feeling quickly faded, however, as some giant monsters started attacking me, scaring the living crap out of me before I gathered my wits and mowed it down with my minigun as well. Once everyone was dealt with, I made my way back into the museum and regrouped with the gang, who invited me along to the place they were going, which wasn't where I was going for my main story, as that was somewhere called Diamond City. I'm assuming that this sets up one of the side storylines of the game, something Bethesda usually does a great job with, but I decided to stick to the main objective for this playthrough. Another thing Bethesda usually does a great job with are skill trees, and Fallout 4 is no exception to it. I didn't extensively look at it during my time playing, just scrolling through it a bit, but there are so many possibilities within it, truly offering variation to do a different type of playthrough of the game whenever you want to. I carried onwards and went to mess around a little bit, exploring what was around, finding a crafting table that confused the hell out of me, ignored it and moved on. On my way to Diamond City, I encountered some thugs threatening a woman who ran a store, who apparently were her son's drug dealers. I mowed them down with the minigun as well, before running out of power and having to get out of my mech suit, but I did get rewarded by the woman for saving her son with 100 bottle caps, the game's currency. I like interactions like these, small stories that build up the world and characters within it by simple dialogue and actions. Here's where we started to get to the end of my 2-hour play session and where I truly started to feel the lack of polish within the game. First of all, I came across this power plant that I wanted to explore as it intrigued me, but I had to jump from one place to another, fell down due to the poor controls, and started back at Concord, forgetting that Bethesda games require you to manually save like back in the day, which I always hated in Skyrim and also just don't like in Fallout. I then encountered more monsters, making me realize that the best way to deal with the game's combat system was not to deal with it at all and try to avoid everything possible. Yeah, that's not a good sign, is it? Oh well, something that was a good sign was the way that the game set up another side story, as my Pip-Boy alerted me that there was a radio frequency being broadcasted which came from the police station. I listened into it and changed my quest marker to the area where I was supposed to go, and this is where I encountered another group, a brotherhood, that was fighting off ghouls and sent out this message for help. Using my shotgun, I helped them out before being invited along and my timer going off for the 2-hour mark. Just like the previous group, I'm assuming that this Brotherhood is another storyline within the game. Now with the time being up and after 2 hours of playtime, should you refund Fallout 4? When it comes to this game, I think the highs are very high and the lows are very low. The game does a fantastic job at building its world and characters by using strongly written dialogues, straight to the point visuals and great music to tie it all together. Having that person near the bridge just laying there makes you wonder what happened without there needing to be any dialogue. But when there is dialogue, like with the trader woman or during the main story, it's well written and makes you curious about what else is out there. And like I mentioned before, the music adds that extra touch to it being cinematic when you go back up to the surface, being ambient when you're exploring, and at night being just slightly eerie. All of this truly makes the world feel very immersive and alive. Unfortunately, this immersion is quickly broken once you have to actually interact with the game, as the gunplay, overall movement and the use of its various interfaces are very clunky and annoying to deal with. As mentioned, the interface thing is something you can get used to and will become second nature after a while. It's not a great look, but it's not game defining in my opinion. What is though is the overall gameplay regarding gunplay and movement. Feeling like you can't really dodge or even approach situations in different ways because you're limited by its movement system, and wanting to avoid all combat because both the movement and the poor gunplay is a terrible sign for a game that heavily relies on its combat to make it interesting. So should you refund Fallout 4? Absolutely. If you're playing this with a controller and are not planning on using any mods, it's not worth your time at all, as it's way too clunky and annoying to play, which is a shame, as the world is truly interesting and makes you want to explore to find out more. Now I don't know what it's like with keyboard and mouse, it might be better, but this game 100% needs mods to fix its issues. It's no surprise that one of the most popular mods for this game fixes all the issues with its overall gameplay. So if you're planning on using mods, then maybe you don't have to refund it. But the vanilla game is unfortunately not worth your time if you're looking for a fun gameplay experience. Now with any of these videos, this is just my opinion and I would like to hear yours. Leave a like if you did enjoy it and subscribe for more Should You Refund videos on this channel. My name is Chev and I will see you in the next video.